Hi, I'm Jodi Carlton, and I want to talk to you about executive functioning disorder, which is not an actual clinical diagnosis, but it is something that creates disordered type of challenges for a lot of people. But a lot of people ask me, what does it actually look like? How do I know if my spouse or my dating partner is struggling with executive dysfunction? I've got a few other videos and I've written several blogs about this. So if you want more of a breakdown of what executive function is, you can check out those links. I'll drop them in the description. But here, I want to talk to you specifically and tell you how to pay attention to your own reactions to your partner, which will give you clues about whether or not your partner is struggling with executive functioning. What are some of the things that frustrate you the most? What are some of the things when you stop and think about what kinds of things are you constantly feeling like you're nagging your partner or having to remind them or having to do things yourself that you really think your partner should be doing more of, or that you don't feel like there's balance in the relationship? Is your partner constantly forgetting when there have been agreed upon things to do, whether that's appointments or just division of labor in the house, the chores, taking care of the kids, the meals, the grocery shopping? Is your partner consistently agreeing with you on how to go about those things, but then not following through? That's a sign of executive dysfunction. Sometimes it can look like your partner's being intentional and just trying to be lazy or to get out of doing work. But you want to be a detective and look underneath the surface of why is it that your partner is forgetting those things? When does your partner tend to drop the ball? Is it because they're overloaded, overwhelmed? Are there other things going on? Are they distracted? Are they willing to follow through when you remind them? I want you to ask yourself, do I believe that my partner doesn't actually care? Because sometimes we have this fear and maybe an insecurity that it's because our partner doesn't care about us. But when you look at all the other ways in which your partner communicates that they care, do you see that they do care? Do you see that they do love you, yet are not following through with commitments, are not following through with requests? You also want to ask yourself, do you believe that your partner actually wants you to feel harm, that your partner enjoys seeing you distressed? And if the answer to that is, no, I don't believe that my partner wants me to be distressed. As a matter of fact, my partner gets stressed out if I am distressed. If that's the case, and it is with a lot of autistic partners especially, and really ADHD partners too, if it is the case that you getting distressed or upset or mad is distressing for your partner, then they likely would prefer to follow through and not forget about tasks. So it's not likely an intentional thing that they're doing just to upset you, even though sometimes it feels that way. Motivation is often a struggle with executive functioning, and it's related to dopamine. We have neurotransmitters and chemicals in our brain that help give us the get up and go to actually get things done. So with neurodivergence, sometimes those dopamine levels fluctuate from too much to too little. And it's not just dopamine, but that's one of them. So if there's not enough dopamine, they may not be prompted by their brain even to do tasks that need to be done. Oftentimes, for example, people who procrastinate and they wait till the last minute, or they need that push of a deadline, it's because they don't have enough dopamine that's regulated throughout the day. The dopamine actually gives us that motivation, that ability to get up and get started on a task, even if the deadline's far away. Sometimes people who don't have that dopamine, and this is where medication can actually help with ADHD and even autistic individuals who struggle with motivation, medications can help. Because a lot of times people will wait till that last minute where there's a deadline, and that actually puts the brain into a state of crisis, and that releases dopamine. And so that's the push that gets people motivated. I have ADHD and I can relate to this. I work better with deadlines. I'm a procrastinator. Both of my children work better with deadlines. Now, and I say work better, if it's just me that's impacted, then it's not a problem. But if I'm procrastinating and it's impacting other people in my world, that's where it becomes problematic. It won't be because I don't care about those people or that their, well-being doesn't matter to me. But if my dopamine levels are lower and I'm needing that deadline to raise them to help me be motivated, but then that causes them to be late or behind on their whatever they're needing to do in correlation with what I'm doing, then that can cause problems in a relationship. So you want to also look at what does seem to motivate your partner. Is it those deadlines that motivates them? Something else that you may see from your partner is emotional dysregulation. The executive functioning part of our brain here in the frontal lobes helps us, because of regulated neurotransmitters, dopamine levels, cortisol even, which are stress hormones, other types of serotonin. We've heard of serotonin. Those are involved in depression, and other types of chemicals in our brain make us feel either anxious or sad or depleted or not motivated. Those things also influence our emotional regulation. So whether or not we feel happy or joyful or sad or distressed or hopeless or intensely angry or intensely upset. And those types of emotions may really vacillate back and forth. Some people who are neurodivergent are misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder. Some are misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder because their emotions can really seem to fluctuate and shift back and forth rapidly. And this is not actual bipolar disorder, and it's not a borderline personality disorder, which can also involve quickly and rapidly shifting emotions, but it's more related to executive dysfunction and dopamine levels in the brain. So if you find yourself wondering if you're going to get Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, some of you may not understand that reference to that movie, but it's which personalities are you going to get, then this may be related to executive dysfunction. So as you can imagine, memory problems are also an issue. If your partner forgets where they put the keys, or things that we hold in what's called our short-term or working memory. It's the part of our memory that holds things in a temporary space that we don't really need to have stored long-term. Even remembering things that you would like from them. So if you've communicated to your partner, I would love for you to hug me more often. It's not necessarily that your partner doesn't care about you or doesn't want to hug you, but it may be that holding that information temporarily and starting to hug you more often until it becomes an actual long-term habit, that may be something that they struggle to remember to do. Or maybe you've asked them to turn off the light in the bathroom at night, or just little things that they don't remember to do. Again, it may feel like they don't care about your request, but it may be more that their brain's just not able to hold that information in memory long enough to follow through on it. This type of thing can also result in impulsive behaviors. So when a thought comes to mind, a partner with executive dysfunction will act on it right then. People with executive dysfunction are somewhat aware that if they don't do something right now, they may forget it later. So this leads to poor planning, poor organizing. Your partner may not be the one who does the best job at planning trips or vacations or thinking ahead and figuring out what are the next steps. Maybe they'll be able to see the next 2 to 3 steps that need to happen, but not necessarily farther ahead. We just literally got our son off to college, and his dad really struggled to be able to see all the steps necessary way out in advance, things that have to be done in order to get my son actually off to college. And it was a bit of a mess there for a while because I'm ADHD and so is my son. So I tend to have better organizing and planning skills than some of the rest of my family, but I can also be very forgetful and struggle with that working memory. And so I was so terrified that we were going to forget something big, and we may still have. I just took him off to college this past weekend. So it can be difficult when more than one of you struggles with executive functioning. So lastly, I'll just say, a partner with executive function may be really a messy and disorganized person, or the opposite, may be super organized and have things in their place and get upset if things are not put back in their place. But it's really most likely going to be at one extreme or the other. And the person who's just very chaotic and their spaces are very cluttered and messy, even their schedules are messy, their clothing, their hygiene is messy, those folks are more likely to be struggling with executive functions to help organize their thoughts and then the things that need to be done to keep those spaces cleaned up and decluttered, or even just planning ahead and making things less chaotic. But then again, you may have someone who's on the other extreme who's so super organized that they become very distressed if you are not able to follow through with their organizational structure. And again, I want you to pay attention to your own reaction to your partner. What kinds of things are getting you frustrated about your partner? And your partner may react defensively if you complain about these things or bring them to their attention because their brain is struggling. Receiving that criticism is hard, especially if it comes across as an attack. And although it's very important for people to all be responsible for themselves, and if you are the one with executive dysfunction, it's important for you to learn as many coping strategies as possible, especially if your difficulties affect other people. That's very important. But if this is your partner that we're talking about, then it is important to investigate why this is happening. And do you believe your partner really just doesn't care and really just doesn't mind if your life is affected by their dysfunction? Most people who are neurodivergent, autistic, or even ADHD neurodivergent don't want the people they love to be distressed. They don't want that. But oftentimes they have difficulty seeing the impact that they have on their partners. So hope all that was helpful, and let me know what you think in the comments.